Well, good morning. Today is Friday, December 25th, and you know what today is? Today is Christmas! I don't know why I said it like that. But anyway, let's start with God's love note. First, a reading from Hosea. Take away all guilt, except that which is good, and we will offer the fruit of our lips. Assyria will not save us. We will not ride upon horses. We will say no more, our God, to the work of our hands, and you, the orphan, finds mercy. And here is God's love note. On this birthday of my son, I invite you to turn to an ancient text from which he would have studied and learned. As you celebrate him today, reflect on what it means to give up believing that the work of your hands or a strong army is your salvation. Instead, embrace me, the God of the orphan and of the innocent and sinner, the God of a baby born vulnerable among animals, brought in from the cold and born of his teenage mother and his father, who also wasn't his father. The God of the family who took in a very pregnant woman and of the many people who would not ask. I ask you today to offer me the fruit of your lips and the songs of your heart. So let's pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. So, Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you're able to have a joyous day today, or at least find some joy. I know this is going to be a Christmas like none other, but I do hope that you're able to find a way to be with your family or be with someone you love. This is a good day. Christmas is always one of those magical days, at least. You know, I can remember being a kid and waking up on Christmas morning and being so excited to go to see what Santa left under the tree. Although I was afraid of Santa, but that's besides the point. And I always loved going over to my grandma's house, and she would cook up a nice big ham, and then we would open presents. I want to still, have some of that magic in my life. The kind of stuff the magic you believed in when you were a kid. The kind of faith that kids have. I think kids can teach us a lot about what it means to have faith, because sometimes we're going to have to believe in things that we don't understand many times. And faith, and I think Christmas, the idea of Santa is one of those things that can really help kids practice a life of faith, because it's Santa. And yeah, I don't know. That's just my own personal opinion. So anyway, let's get started with a little bit of the National Geographic, and we're going to talk about divorce and remarriage in the Bible. And so this is in the woman's rights in Jewish law. So this is a Torah scroll right here. That's in Jewish synagogues. That's where they read from. So many marriages lasted into old age, but others could end in divorce, as provided by the Torah. All the husband had to do was write his wife a certificate of divorce, samples of which were found. There were samples found among the 2nd century CE documents recovered from the Cave of Letters near the Dead Sea. So having written such a document, the husband merely puts in her hand and sends her out of his house. Now, biblical scholars do not agree if the same rights of divorce were traditionally granted to the wife as well. In rare instances, men could be forced to divorce their wives. After the exile, the Jewish priest Ezra discovered that many Jewish men had married people of foreign lands in violation of the law that forbade Jews to marry non-Jews. In response, Ezra ordered them to separate yourselves from the people of the land and from the foreign wives. Though it probably broke many hearts, the men obeyed and sent those wives away, including any children that they had with them. Some references in the Mishnah suggest that even as late as the early 3rd century, only husbands could initiate a divorce. There is some evidence that in practice a woman could obtain a divorce certificate as well. As Deuteronomy indicated, this made the woman free to marry someone else. It could also result in large households with many children for multiple fathers. We can see a glimpse of this in residential structures from the 1st century, which often include a number of dwellings, sometimes on 2 levels, grouped around a common courtyard. So that's interesting. And it's my opinion that women didn't get anything in the Bible. I don't know. Women were treated as second-class citizens all the way, I felt. Yeah. So, what says Christmas more than a little catching fire? Here's Katniss. Let's catch up with Katniss. For me, the jungle has quickly evolved from a place of protection to a sinister trap. I know at some point we'll be forced to re-enter its depths, either to hunt or be hunted. But for right now, I'm planning to stick to our beach. And I don't hear Peter or Finnick suggesting we do otherwise. For a while, the jungle seems almost static, humming, shimmering, but not flaunting its dangers. Then comes screaming. Across from us, a wedge of the jungle begins to vibrate. An enormous wave crests high on the hill, topping the trees and roaring down the slope. It hits the existing seawater with such force that even though we're as far as we can get from it, the surf bubbles up around our knees, setting our few possessions afloat. Among the three of us, we manage to collect everything before it's carried off, except for our chemical-riddled jumpsuits, which are eaten away so no one cares if we lose them. A cannon fires. We see the hovercraft appear over the area where the wave began and pluck a body from the trees. 12, I think. The circle of water slowly calms down, having absorbed the giant wave. We rearrange our things back on the wet sand and are about to settle down when I see them. 3 figures, about 2 spokes away, stumbling onto the beach. There, nodding in the newcomer's direction. Peeta and Finnick follow my gaze as if by previous agreement we all fade back into the shadows of the jungle. The trio's in bad shape, you can see that right off. One is being practically dragged out by a second, and the third wanders in loopy circles as if deranged. There's a solid brick red color as if they've been dipped in paint and left out to dry. Who is that, or what? Mutations? I drew back an arrow, readying for attack, but all that happens is the one who was being dragged collapses on the beach. The dragger stamps the ground in frustration and in an apparent fit of temper turns and shoves the circling deranged one over. Finnick's face lights up. "Joanna," he calls and runs for the red things. "Finnick," I hear Joanna's voice reply. I exchange a look with Peeta. What now? We can't really leave Finnick. Guess not. Come on then, I say, because even if I had enlisted allies, Joanna Mason would definitely not have been on it. So I was a little grumpy. The two of us tromp down the beach to where Finnick and Joanna are just meeting up. As we move in closer, I see her companions, and confusion sets in. That's Beatty on the ground on his back, and Wyrus, who's regained her feet to continue making loops. She's got Wyrus and Beatty. "Nuts and bolts?" Peeta says, equally puzzled. I've got to hear how this happened. When we reach them, Joanna's gesturing toward the jungle and talking very fast to Finnick. "We thought it was rain, because of the lightning, and we were all so thirsty, but when it started coming down, it turned out to be blood, thick, hot blood. You couldn't see. You couldn't speak without getting a mouthful. We just staggered around trying to get out of it. That's when Blight hit the force field." "I'm sorry, Joanna," says Finnick. "It takes a moment to place Blight. I think he was Joanna's male counterpart from 7, but I hardly remember seeing him. Come to think of it, I don't even think he showed up for training." "Yeah, well, he wasn't much, but he was from home, and he left me alone with these two." She nudges Beatty, who's barely conscious, with her shoe. He got a knife in the back at the cornucopia, and her. We all look over at Wyrus, who's circling around, coated in dry blood and murmuring, "Tick-tock, tick-tock." "Yeah, we know tick-tock. Nuts is in shock," says Joanna. This seems to draw Wyrus in her direction, and she careens into Joanna, who harshly shoves her to the beach. "Just stay down, will you?" "Lay off her," I snap. Joanna narrows her brown eyes at me in hatred. "Lay off her?" She steps forward before I can relax and slaps me so hard I see stars. "Who do you think got them out of that bleeding jungle for you?" "You?" Finnick tosses her writhing body over his shoulder and carries her out into the water and repeatedly dunks her while she screams a lot of really insulting things at me. But I don't shoot, because she's with Finnick and because of what she said about getting them for me. "What does she mean she got them for me?" I asked Peeta. "I don't know. You did want them originally." "Yeah, I did originally, but that answers nothing. I look down at Beatty's inert body, but I won't have them long unless we do something." Peeta lifts Beatty up in his arms, and I take Wyrus by the hand, and we go back to our little beach. I sit Wyrus in the shallows so she can get washed up a bit, but she just clutches our hands together and occasionally mumbles. I unhook Beatty's belt and find a heavy metal cylinder attached to the side with a rope of vines. I can't tell what it is, but if he thought it was worth saving, I'm not going to be the one who loses it. I toss it up on the sand. Beatty's clothes are glued to him with blood, so Peeta holds him in the water while I loosen them. It takes some time to get the jumpsuit off, and then we find his undergarments are saturated with blood as well. There's no choice but to strip him naked to get him clean. But I have to say, this doesn't make much of an impression on me anymore. Our kitchen table has been full of so many naked men this year. You kind of get used to it after a while. We put down Finnick's mat and lay Beatty on his stomach so we can examine his back. There's a gash about 6 inches long running from his shoulder to below his ribs. Fortunately, it's not too deep. He's lost a lot of blood. You can tell by the pallor of his skin, and it's still oozing out of the wounds. So Merry Christmas, everyone. And Merry Christmas, each and every one of them. Is that what? Yeah, I was watching Christmas Carol recently. So have a wonderful Christmas.